Good morning. I expect a lively debate. There are some people here with quite divergent views, as we found out last year, and I don't expect these divergences to have disappeared in the interim period.
The U.S. economy has recovered. The growth rate this year will be run somewhere between 2.5% and 3% on a fourth-to-fourth basis. And while that might have seemed to be a rather benign set of experiences relative to what we might have expected after the 9/11 terrorist attack, in the meantime, we have had a major market meltdown. We've had the first collapse of the stock market during the early recovery period of the U.S. economy. We've had the Federal Reserve take interest rates down to levels that I think many people would not have thought were even possible last year. And while I think we have some positive signals in terms of global recovery, we are sitting here looking forward to a set of risks, certainly risks, I think, that surround the prospect of a war in the Middle East that have some truly profound downsides. If we see a war in Iraq, there will be an event either in the Middle East or in the United States or a series of events around the world that will create a shocked, visible impact on consumer confidence. This is, I think, a low probability but a positive probability, and it is this impact that I think could essentially reverse this favorable view and give you no growth in the U.S. or risk the prospect of a recession. As we look forward, and some of these risks associated with the Middle East pass, that we should expect a very sharp and possibly a very surprising appreciation in the dollar. I see that over the next 24 months, we're going to see the dollar hit new highs. And it's not that I view the system as stable. I think the system is unstable, but that the appetite of the dollar, both on a cyclical basis and because of its importance in China, has not been satiated, and that we will take it to highs that we have not seen yet during the 1990s. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail.
I think realistically we're probably looking at 0.5% to 0.8% real growth in Germany. And the main point about that is we shouldn't fool ourselves in interpreting this. This is not so much a cyclical weakening. Most of this is a very significant decline in Germany's trend growth rate. What does Germany need? Well, we all know what it needs. It needs reforms in the labor markets. It needs a redesign in the social transfer systems. The social transfers as they are today are conditional on not working. We need a serious decline in the tax rates, the tax burden on labor predominantly. And I think here again is a European implication. Germany's government should forget about the Stability Pact for a while, do everything it needs to revive trend growth in Germany, and then once we have that, that will solve the debt and deficit problems, because that's the experience that we've had in all euro area countries. If we think about the UK and entry into the euro area in the near future, I think the British government should probably forget about the 5 tests and just apply one big test, which is Germany going back to a reasonable trend growth rate above 2%? Because if not, the euro area economy is going to be a slow growing economy, and Britain, which is currently still one of the bright spots of Europe, will certainly have no interest of joining a currency which is a slow growth area.
This year is going to be the most critical and important year for the Koizumi reform. As you know, that the Japanese economy has been suffering from deflationary spiral for the consecutive 4 years. And under these conditions, the macroeconomic policies to stimulate the economy suffers from serious constraints. The most important thing is the economic revitalization package, which is a new technologies and urban renewal, and particularly encourage and create consumer oriented service industries, which I'd like to come back. This is the most important package of what I call demand-generating structural reform. And this is perhaps the only promising, viable strategy that Japan can employ, because traditional macroeconomic stimulus policy cannot work. I think Japan will get back to the normal rate of growth, which the government predicts around 1.5 to 2%, much lower than China, but that's a good degree of growth for a mature economy within about 2-3 years.
We had a very good year last year. I think everybody heard about that. We have 8% GDP growth rates. And to support these growth rates, there are three major issues. The fixed capital investment is very strong. We have a 24%. And also the trade growth is extremely strong. So we have a 21% trade growth, totally reach $620 billion US. And also number three, we have very strong FDI. And the first time China had 52 billion US dollar FDIs, become number one in the world, surpass the States, and also become number one, the most favorable FDI countries in the world. It's very interesting because China import a lot of semiconductor manufactured goods in China and re-exports again. Now, this is the first time happening in Chinese history. I think it's very healthy and very strong. In that sense, China becomes sort of a manufacturing hub. Although still very limited, I will say that. It's first time China will be able to import things from outside of China and re-export again. So, and also because WTOs, we see a lot of foreign capital moving FDIs, bring in the global technologies. The really, really tough issues, I think, for us to face challenges is two things. Number one, in the past 20 years, we'll be able to convert China from a planned economy into market economy. Now, to make the system work, we still need two things. Number one, the institutes to make the market framework work. Number two, the legal system. We don't have these two systems yet, which I think is much, much more difficult. The really thing for the long-term growth is whether we can suppress the Europe in 10, 15 years. It's really demographic issues.
Growth from the point of view of other developing.
A lot of a country's development depends on the restructuring and the institutional dynamics that drive that own domestic market. And I think Mexico has relied too greatly on integration and export and trade integration with the U.S. There has been a big increase in terms of Mexico's costs, and actually there's been some shifting of investment from Mexico to China. But what Mexico has not done is to initiate a lot of the local reforms that would get the domestic market in Mexico going.
My take on the world right now is, sadly, it's a U.S. story. The world is more U.S.-centric today than it has ever been in post-World War II history. The engine of the world, the U.S., is struggling. I think Gail's being very generous in describing the past year as a moderate recovery. It was a pathetic recovery. Gail put her finger on, I think, the central issue that we will be debating over the course of this year. And that is the ability of classic monetary and fiscal stimulus to have a positive impact in altering the outcome. This is what I've called the issue of policy traction. Will traditional stimulus work? And I would argue, if in a normal business cycle, it would, but we are not in a normal business cycle. We're in a post-bubble business cycle. And so the odds are that policy traction will be extremely disappointing in the United States in 2003. The way I see it is, yeah, we've had a lot of policy stimulus. That's the good news. And the good news is that deflationary concerns are what's driving that extraordinary stimulus. But I think, as has been the course over the past year and a half, we've been disappointed by the ability of stabilization policy to get traction. That disappointment will continue over the course of the year and will restrain the U.S. economy and restrain a U.S.-centric world economy to a very disappointing outcome in 2003. Thank you.